So you want to become a wholesaler and sell wholesale clothing, like me.
She's an icon, she's a legend, and she is the moment. Now come on now.
What's up, icons? It's the iconic fashion figure, and today's video I'm going to give a full rundown of becoming a wholesaler and how to sell wholesale clothing. So let me get comfortable for this one. So let's start with the intro to wholesaling. What exactly is wholesaling? Wholesaling is the selling of goods in large quantities to be sold to other businesses, where they will then sell it to the end customer. Now there's different type of wholesalers, where you have the distributor, the manufacturers, the suppliers, all that, which I'll go into in this video as well. But just to get the idea of being a wholesaler, you're selling large quantities of a specific item, whatever it is you choose to sell. My channel is focused mainly on the fashion industry, so that's usually what I focus on, but you can wholesale a lot of stuff, which again, we're going to go through that in this video too. But before we deep dive into all of that, let's talk about the important things you should know before you start your wholesale business. Now with wholesaling, because I've seen some people try to sell wholesale and they're still only selling like one piece of an item. Well, if you truly want to make money when wholesaling, you have to be able to sell high volume. So if you're selling very few pieces, you may notice you're not really turning a profit. And that is because selling wholesale requires a lower markup so that the person buying from you, the business that's buying from you, can then mark it up and sell it to the customer. So if you're only selling very little, you're most likely not making a profit, or either your markup is too high, so it's more like retail pricing anyway. So you may want to consider retail instead of wholesaling. But if you're truly looking to become a wholesaler, you have to be ready to be able to sell high volume. And with that comes a lot of things, such as upfront cost. You have to be able to pay for this volume that you're getting ready to sell upfront. So you may need more money to start a wholesale business than you do a retail business. Or let's talk about the space to store all of this product that you're getting ready to sell. You have to make sure you have enough space to store this stuff. Now, is it possible to start a wholesale business from home? Absolutely. Again, just make sure you have somewhere to store your inventory. But as long as you can do that, you can definitely start this from home. Another one of the things that people tend to like to know about before they actually get into wholesaling is about taxes, because we all know when someone buys wholesale, they usually do not pay taxes because they're going to resell it, and then the end customer actually pays the taxes. So as long as the person you're selling to intends to resell it, hence the reason wholesalers ask for resale certificates, then you don't need to charge them taxes. Now most wholesalers, when it comes to the whole tax situation and the resale certificate, if you don't have a resale certificate, they just don't work with you. Technically, if the person you're selling to does not have a resale certificate, you would simply charge them sales tax. Most wholesalers don't deal with the whole sales tax stuff because they want to sell directly to businesses only, who then resells and collects taxes. So wholesalers usually don't collect taxes, which is why most, if you don't have a resale certificate, just don't work with you, because they only want to work with businesses. But if you want to be one of those to go ahead and collect the sales tax, you don't have to collect their resale certificate. You can sell to them and add sales tax. If you even look at like Alibaba now, they're actually charging you sales tax unless you have a resale certificate. So they're now requiring people to send in their resale certificates if you want to become tax exempt. And then another thing to talk about before we deep dive into wholesaling is about pre-packs. Most wholesalers sell in pre-packs just because we're selling high volume, and that is one of the ways to be sure you're selling high volume. If you're allowing open packs, which is an option too, I've actually been trying that out with my business, you can do open packs as well, and then people can pick how many pieces they want to buy, the size, quantity, colors, all that stuff. Now when you do open packs, that means you're only pulling one piece, which requires more time, and it can potentially lead you to selling less volume because you're only selling one piece at a time. Whereas you sell a pre-pack, which is usually a pack of 6, but you can create your own pre-packs. But a pre-pack of 6, you know, if someone buys that style, they're guaranteed to buy at least 6 pieces. So that way it increases the amount of volume you're selling. Some people may avoid pre-packs all together, do open packs, and then have a minimum on there. So at least you know you're selling a minimum dollar amount. Or you can even say it's open packs, but you have to buy at least 5 pieces. So technically they're creating their own pre-packs. There's a bunch of different ways to go around it, but the whole idea of the pre-pack situation is to be sure you're selling in volume. Plus, retailers like it anyway, because if they're selling to customers, they don't want just one piece of an item to sell.
Don't forget to eat lunch.
Sorry, Alexa's reminding me to eat lunch because this is my lunchtime. But anyway, so pre-packs. It is the whole concept of that is to help you sell high volume, because that is the goal when it comes to wholesaling. You need to be able to sell as much as possible of a style. For one, that's how you keep your costs low up front when you're buying from whoever's creating your product. And then two, it helps you to sell more volume when you have pre-packs. So again, it's your choice what type of pre-packs you want to sell, or if you want to avoid pre-packs altogether and maybe do a minimum or no minimum, you allow people to sell one piece. Just think about the end goal. You're trying to keep costs low and you're trying to sell as many pieces as possible. So let's jump into some wholesale business ideas. Now, I could probably sit here for an hour and run through the different items that you can sell wholesale, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to waste you guys' time like that, nor do I have time. Like I said, it's supposed to be my lunchtime right now. So you can do wholesale clothing, you can do wholesale accessories, wholesale jewelry, skincare, you can do makeup, hair products, pretty much any physical item. I shouldn't even say physical, you can do digital items too. Pretty much any product you can sell wholesale. So even like my lights that are surrounding me right now, you can sell them wholesale. Or not even if you don't want to do the full light fixture, but the light bulbs, you can sell that wholesale. The camera I'm using to record, you can sell that wholesale. Anything you can think of, you can sell wholesale. The whole concept is to sell multiples of whatever it is that you're selling. So one of the questions I get a lot is, how do I find my customers to sell wholesale to? This is pretty easy, and I know I've talked about it in a few videos before, but let's do the rundown of how to find your B2B customers. When you're first starting out, if you don't know anyone in the industry, you don't know any business owners that will sell your product, I always recommend going to social media. Social media is flooded with businesses. You can find pretty much businesses in every industry on social media. So go to Instagram, go to Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, whatever social media platforms you're using, go on there and find a point of contact. One of the best forms of social media to find your point of contact is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is going to have the owners, it'll have sales reps, it'll have the marketing, accounting. They usually have their teams on there. If you're going more of the boutique route, you usually have to find them on social media, like on Instagram, Facebook, and they usually will have like their personal pages tagged on there, or they're following themselves. You can find them some way, somehow. But find your point of contact, call these businesses. Even if you can't find their emails, you can call and figure out if there's someone you can talk to because you want to introduce your brand. Let them know what it is that you want. Don't be afraid to contact them. A lot of these businesses are always looking for a new product. As you guys can see, I've been on YouTube, 3 years now, and I've been putting out wholesale vendor lists for 3 years, and people are still always looking for new vendors. So the businesses are always looking for new products to sell. So don't be afraid to reach out to businesses to see if they're interested in taking a look at your product. And then I'm going to go through the ways of, introducing your product in a moment, but let me talk about other ways you can find your B2B customers. So along with social media, LinkedIn being one of the best ones, and then you can use Instagram too, Facebook as well is a good one. If you already have your website out and you have an email list going, create an incentive for people that are visiting you, the traffic you are getting, to join your email list, because then now that'll help you get contact information so you can start reaching out to them. And then some other platforms to find these B2B customers, if you don't already have contact information and you're not getting the traffic you need on your website to get them to join your email list, look on Yelp. Just type in the industry that you're in. You can put in specific locations. If you want to target specific areas, put those locations in there, start looking up those businesses. So once you go on like Yelp or even just on Google and you find these business names that you want to look up, you can use websites like Monta.com to look up businesses. Monta usually doesn't have their emails, but it'll have, you know, like the business contact, a phone number, a mailing address if you want to mail something. You can use the B2B Yellow Pages. I don't know if you guys even know that B2B Yellow Pages even exists, but it does. Most people probably don't even use Yellow Pages anymore because no one uses a phone book. But this is online, so you don't have to have a physical phone book. You can just look up the B2B Yellow Pages and you'll get a bunch of businesses on there and their contact information. And then allbiz.com is another way you can look up businesses as well. Some of them will have emails on there, some of them don't, but then it'll have mailing address, phone number, business, like sometimes you can find the owner names on there. There's so many ways to look up these different businesses. The main thing you're trying to accomplish here is 1, find a business that's selling the type of product you're selling. 2, find a point of contact. Now with allbiz.com, you have to search by location. So kind of like Yelp, you probably have to type in a location so you can pinpoint areas you want to start with. If you're not sure where you want to start with, of course, you can try your hometown. But let's say you don't necessarily want to sell in your hometown, or you just don't want to be limited to only your hometown. Think Google, I think is what it's called. They have a feature on there where you can search your industry on their website and figure out the best markets for you to sell in. And it'll give you, if you want to look in the US only, it'll give you the top 3 states for your industry. Or if you want to go global, it'll give you like the top 3 countries. Or even if you're not in the US and you want to just search where you want to start selling at, it'll tell you the best areas currently for your industry. So if you're not sure what locations to use, try that website, which I'll link in the description box because for some reason I'm forgetting the name right now. It just came to me. It's the Google Market Finder. You'll want to use that and it'll tell you what markets to sell in for your industry. So those are the locations you can start with, trying to find the businesses that are best for you. So now, how do you get into those big chain stores? Everyone wants to go corporate. Everyone wants to see their product being sold in the big stores that most people already know about and shop. Let me tell you how to do that as well. It's not as hard as you think. It's very similar to how I was talking about finding the B2B customers. You really just need to find that point of contact. And once you have that and you start building that relationship with them, it'll be easier for you to now get your product into the store. But you first have to find the point of contact, which would be the buyer of whatever store it is you're trying to get into. So one of the ways to get into the big chain stores would be attending trade shows. Some of them, depending on what store it is you're trying to get into, specifically like specialty stores, they tend to go to trade shows to scout out new brands or brands that they're interested in working with. So attending trade shows is one of them. But not all buyers actually go to the trade shows, because you also have like Market Week, where a lot of the corporate stores tend to go to market instead of the trade shows. So Market Week is another way to go, but as a beginner, you may not be attending market and scheduling those appointments because those are usually by appointment only. So how do you actually find these buyers? Again, use those same things that I just told you guys as far as finding B2B customers when trying to find the big chain stores. Go on LinkedIn. A lot of them are on there. And if you can find their point of contact, try reaching out to them. Just make sure when you reach out to them, know that that first impression is everything. So if you don't wow them on that first impression and they recognize your email, if you keep trying to contact them, they're going to mark you as spam. They're going to junk you. They don't want to work with you anymore. But you got to try to really catch their attention that first go around. And the way to do that would be sending your line sheet so they can actually see what product. Because I noticed some people will send out emails and just tell a customer to go to their website. I've gotten them before, and I'm not even a buyer. I sell wholesale, but I will have people send it to me asking me to just go check out their website. Yeah, well, if I don't know you and I'm not familiar with your brand, I'm not clicking on that link. I'm deleting the email. So don't just send a link to your website telling them to go check out your website. That's not going to work. Send the line sheets or pictures, lookbooks, whatever it is that you have. I recommend trying to embed it into the email so that way it's not an attachment they actually have to download, but it'll be like the first thing they see when they open the email. Just make sure the email's not too big where it ends up in spam. But I would try to embed those images in there so it's the first thing that they see so you can capture their attention. If you really want to take it an extra step further, wholesaler, if you know the buyer's information and you have a mailing address to send to the buyer, send out the line sheets, send a sample with it if you can, so they can actually see the product, and then make sure your business information is always included in there too. Again, first impressions is everything, so whatever you can do to really capture their attention is the way to go. And then if you can, that next step would to be to set up those meetings so they can actually meet you in person, they can actually see the product in person. Most of the big chain stores aren't just going on your websites and placing orders like most people would do e-commerce. If you want to be working with the bigger brands, they typically shop in person. So they want to see the products in person. They want to be able to feel it, touch it, They don't just buy online and hope for the best. They actually want to shop in person. So if you're trying to sell to the big chain stores, I recommend sending a sample. If you don't have the samples to send, if you can at least send your lookbooks or line sheets and hopefully can book a meeting, then make sure you bring samples to your meeting. They need to be able to see something. One of the best tips I can give you before you actually start working with those big chain stores, make sure your business is prepared for the volume. Some of the big chain stores may only put you into like one location at a time just to test it out, so it may not be too big, may not be super heavy volume, but if they find a product that they really like and they know that it'll sell, they will write you the order to get the big quantity. So make sure your factories can handle the quantity. Make sure your warehouse and all your employees, whoever's working with you, can handle it. Make sure you have the cash flow to handle those orders. You want to make sure you're prepared for this before you get an order that you can't even fulfill. Because if you cancel that first order on them, or you're late, something's messed up with their order, that can ruin your relationship with that business and they may never work with you again. And it's going to be harder for you to get into these big corporate stores when you messed up on the first one that you had. So make sure you're truly prepared for it before you jump into it, because I know that's usually what everyone truly wants. They really want to be in those corporate stores, but they don't realize the amount of work that's required. Because let me tell you, a lot of the corporate stores, they have agreements that you have to abide by. They have rules and regulations in there. There's a lot of requirements in these agreements, and you have to sign those before you're allowed to ship to them. If you don't sign it, they're not doing business with you. They have specific deadlines of when their product needs to be shipped out and received in their warehouse, and it has to be delivered on time, because if it's not, usually in their agreements it says in there they can cancel it and you take the loss on that. So you have to be prepared and understand all of their requirements. It could be the ticketing on the item that has to be correct, the way it's packaged, the labels outside on the boxes, any paperwork that needs to be attached to it. Like a lot of the big corporate stores, especially if you're working with department stores, they want the product to come in ready to be placed on the floor. So they don't want to have to do any work other than maybe taking off the poly bag and putting it on the floor. Other than that, they don't want to have to do anything. So you have to read those agreements, make sure you can handle what it is that they're asking for, and make sure you stick to those deadlines, because I will feel so sorry for you if an order cancels because you're late. Now, some buyers are lenient, and if you contact them before the deadline, they'll give you an extension, but that's usually once you build a relationship with them. I would not recommend reaching out asking for an extension on an order when it's your first time working with them. So make sure you can handle what it is that they're asking for. Another thing you'll want to make sure you know about and understand before working with the big stores, especially corporations, is knowing what EDIs is, because that is the way that they tend to transfer their orders over to you. Again, like I said, most of them aren't just going on your website and buying the product that you want. Some of them have to send in an EDI, and that requires a whole separate system. So you have to be able to receive the orders that they're trying to send to you. Otherwise, again, you wasted your time because you can't even receive the order that they're trying to send over to you. So those are things to look into when selling to the big chain stores. But in order to find the right point of contact, you have to do your research on that. Make sure you get out into the industry events, network. You'll be surprised who you meet, especially fashion week, fashion shows. They tend to attend a lot of this stuff, so you have to make sure you network with them. So now let's talk about selling wholesale only, or for those of you that are already selling retail and you want to add on the option to sell wholesale as well. What's the difference between those two? What's better than the other? You know, the pros and cons here. I sell strictly wholesale only, no retail at all. There are a lot of companies out there now, it's like the thing to do right now, where they are selling retail and then they've added on the option to buy wholesale from them them as well. Now, as far as selling wholesale only, when you're selling wholesale only, like I mentioned before, you're selling at a low markup. So the amount of money you're making per piece is minimal compared to if you were to sell retail. Your markup's a lot higher, so you're making more money off of just one piece. So let's say, for example, I'm selling this dress that I have on. Selling it wholesale, I'm just gonna throw out random numbers. Let's say I only make $3 per piece on this item when I sell wholesale. So if I sell a pack of 6, I only made $18 selling 6 pieces of this dress. But let's say if I were to sell it retail and I mark it up to my retail price, and now I'm making $15 per piece. So if I were to sell 6 pieces of this dress and I'm making $15 in profit per piece, that's $45. So wholesale, I've made $18, I think I said. Retail, I'm making $45. So of course it sounds like retail is the way to go because I made $45 versus $18. Of course I want to make more money. But again, remember, the whole concept of selling wholesale is to sell a lot. You don't want to sell only 6 pieces. A retailer may only buy and sell 6 pieces because they bought one pack of it. But as a wholesaler, you need to sell way more. So now let's say I jump into those higher volumes and I sell 1,000 pieces of this dress versus only 6 pieces. 1,000 pieces at earning $3 per piece, I've now made $3,000 off this one dress. Most retailers, unless you have multiple locations, multiple warehouses, aren't selling 1,000 pieces. So wholesaling would be the way to go if you're trying to sell 1,000 pieces of it. But that's just one example. I threw out a random number. $3 is technically pretty low unless you're selling something like lashes or smaller items like a small beauty product or something. You may only make $3 per piece. But if you're selling bigger items, you probably will make a little more. I just threw out random numbers. But that's one of the reasons of wholesale versus retail. Now let's say you're selling retail and wholesale. You would normally be selling this item and you're profiting $15 per piece. But let's say you have someone that wants to buy a full 6 pieces from you. Most people that sell retail and wholesale will still probably make a little more wholesale because they don't mark their prices down as low. Some do, not all, but you have that option too where you can either make $18 per, or what was it? No, I'm forgetting my numbers that I was just telling you guys. 15. So you can either make $15 off one piece or you can make $18 by selling 6 pieces. That is when people offer retail wholesale. So that may be a positive way to go when you're trying to do retail and wholesale. Now the problem with that is when you're selling wholesale only, you're selling it to your customer and now your customer has the rest of the world that they can sell to because they're not in competition with you trying to sell it retail as well. Whereas if you have a retailer that also sells wholesale, if you buy wholesale from them, you're now in competition with them to try to beat them to the end customer because they're also trying to sell to the end customer as well. So now you're in competition with your own customer. There are a lot of buyers out there that will not buy from retailers that also sell wholesale because let's say you start branding your retail / wholesale business and people start knowing your brand. The first thing they're going to do is go Google your brand and your website comes up first. So now that means the customers are mainly going to you because all they're doing is typing in the brand and going to your website and they're buying directly from you. So what's the point of me buying wholesale from you and it's harder for me to get the customers that I don't already have? The only way I would buy wholesale from a retailer is if I already have my very own audience that's loyal to me and will buy directly from me always versus going directly to the brand. So that's one of the negatives of selling retail versus wholesale because you're in competition with your customers. Whereas if you just buy directly from wholesale, you know you don't have to compete with them trying to sell to the end customer. And then another thing I just want to point out with wholesale only versus retail and wholesale. Wholesale only, you're selling high volume. So that means when you go to produce the product with your factory, you tend to get lower costs up front because you're buying more pieces. Whereas retailers, they tend to buy less because they're not guaranteed to sell that many pieces. So their price up front is usually higher. Now when it comes to selling more volume, high or low, that just all depends on what you really want. Some people prefer to sell higher volume volume, some people don't want to deal with that many pieces and prefer to go lower. Also with that, because you're selling fewer pieces and you don't want to deal with the high volume, a lot of retailers that offer wholesale also are usually just distributors, which means they're not selling wholesale at the best pricing anyway. So let me jump into that. Distributors versus the actual manufacturer. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there's a difference between, being a distributor and being a manufacturer, because there's different type of wholesalers. So you can be the actual manufacturer that sells wholesale, meaning you designed and produced the product that you are selling. Whereas as a distributor, you didn't design that product. You bought it from the manufacturer and then you're selling it to another business. So it's almost like the distributor is a middleman. They're getting it from the manufacturer and then they're selling it to another business and then that business is going to sell it to the end customer. So it's like adding another person to the lineup. You have manufacturer, distributor, retailer, and customer. Whereas if it's just manufacturer, it goes manufacturer to the retailer to the end customer. So you cut out that extra person in there with the distributor. But sometimes distributors are actually good to shop with because they will go to the manufacturer and they will buy the high volume from the manufacturer. They're just not the ones that's actually producing it. So they still get low cost. Just might not be as low if you were buying directly from the manufacturer, but they do still get low cost and are able to sell it to a retailer. So like when I did my Miami Fashion District video and I was showing you guys a lot of the wholesalers over there, and I've done videos in the past where I've talked about like I usually wouldn't shop the Miami Fashion District unless I like absolutely needed something right now if I was a retailer here in Miami, because they tend to buy from the manufacturers that are based in LA and then they'll distribute here in Florida, here in Miami. So it's almost like the manufacturers have another warehouse here, but someone else is selling for them. And someone commented on that video, like we were having a conversation about that on that video in the comments. But basically the only way I would buy from the Miami Fashion District from the distributors is if I needed it right now and I wanted to avoid the shipping cost. But if I have a little time to wait and the shipping cost not a big deal, or maybe they're providing me with free shipping, I'm going straight to the manufacturer and I'm gonna buy it at the better price. I have noticed though there were a couple times where a distributor had the same exact price as the manufacturer. So that is possible too. So for those of you that are considering becoming a distributor, I don't want to discourage you. It's all about negotiating. So if you are good at negotiating and you can get your cost as low as possible from the manufacturer, then you can sell just as low as what they're selling. So distributing is not a bad thing at all. I don't want to make it sound like it's bad, but there is a difference between being a distributor versus being the manufacturer. And then one more topic I'm going to touch on in this starting a wholesale clothing business masterclass, and that is getting your website set up for B2B online. That's if you're going to be selling online, because some wholesalers don't actually sell online. You have to shop them in person. But if you want to be able to sell online, how do you get your website set up to be able to sell wholesale online? It's not as hard as you think it is. It's actually very similar to if you had an online boutique. The main difference between having an online boutique and an online wholesale business is you're selling bulk items. So the checkout process, you have to be sure that it's adding the right quantity. Some wholesale websites, they will show you the price for that one piece, and then when the customer goes to checkout, it'll add the correct amount of pieces that are supposed to be there. For example, if it's supposed to be a 6-piece pre-pack, I may see the wholesale cost just for one piece, but when I go click add to cart, it's going to actually add 6 pieces on there. You can do it that way, or you can do it the way of when they're looking at it, they see the cost of the full pre-pack. So again, because I'm talking about 6-piece pre-packs, they will see the cost for 6 pieces. When they go to add it to the cart, it'll be that same cost because it is for 6 pieces. I just recommend putting in the description somewhere that it is 6 pieces that they're buying. Now, as far as account setup, most wholesale websites have a way where you can set up an account to buy wholesale because they're only selling to businesses, so they need you to be registered to buy. So you need to set up a way on your website where people can actually create accounts on your website to be able to shop wholesale from you. And then you'll also, if you're going to collect resale certificates, you need to have a way for them to upload their resale certificates. Now, I've noticed some websites too, instead of having the option to upload their resale certificate right on the website, they'll just give you an email and tell you to email your resale certificate. So you can do do it that way too if you don't have the functionality to upload directly to your website. Other than that, it's pretty much the same thing as an e-commerce website. Once they have their account set up, the option to upload their resale certificate, and then adding those bulk items. Oh, the other thing you'll want to do if you're doing sales tax, so you'll have to decide if you're only selling to businesses, so B2B customers only that have a resale certificate, then you don't have to worry about tax. But if you're giving the option of, if you don't have a resale certificate and I'm just going to charge you tax, you have to have it set up on your website where the customers that have a resale certificate, tax is not added onto their order. But the customers that don't have a resale certificate, tax is added onto their order. So you have to have that set up as well, which is possible. It's actually easy to do. You just have to make sure those rules are set up on your website. Trying to think what else I want to talk about as far as wholesale. Wholesaling is pretty easy to do. It's just a lot of work that's put into it, which is any business, to be honest with you. If you guys have any questions as far as wholesale, you can drop it down in the comments and I'll be sure to add on to this video. But I tried to put everything I can think of into one video so you guys that are looking into wholesaling can do so. Especially before I get into my series for my men's clothing line, where I walk you guys through every little detail of how I create my men's clothing line. That way now you can have in the back of your mind, do you want to do retail, wholesale, or both? And if you guys need help with finding a factory to produce your product, I created the video on that already, so I'll make sure to link that down in the description box of some of the factories that I've scouted out for you guys to try and have them produce your clothing, your accessories, whatever it is that you need to produce. That's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching.